Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Wednesday, August 20th. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 608 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we are recapping day number 16 of New York Jets training camp. I was out at One Jets Drive this afternoon. So in today's episode, I will have all of my in-person takeaways from what took place on the field in Florham Park. It was the last training camp practice for the New York Jets this summer, and now all eyes are set on the regular season. One more preseason game coming up against the Eagles on Friday night at MetLife Stadium, and after that, we bring on the season and get ready for week number 1 at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Before we dive into what took place, though, today at One Jets Drive and my big takeaways from today's training camp finale, the New York Jets, shortly after training camp ended this afternoon, made a trade. Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn have made a move. They have acquired Jowon Briggs, defensive tackle from the Cleveland Browns. So I want to dive into this move first. From what the trade is, the Jets obviously get Jowon Briggs. They also get a 2026 7th-round pick, and the Browns receive a 2026 6th-round pick. So essentially a pick swap. The Jets get Briggs, add some defensive tackle depth, and you going into training camp, and as we have gone through training camp and as we end training camp, one of the couple positions that the New York Jets we've talked about on this podcast and many Jet fans have discussed as well of need is and boosting is potentially at wide receiver, which we heard earlier today that the New York Jets have been monitoring the wide receiver trade market. So that's something to keep an eye on here over the next couple days, over the next couple weeks before things kick off in week number 1. But defensive line and the defensive line depth specifically was another area that you looked at this New York Jets roster and said there could be room for improvement, especially when you look at adding another run-stopping defensive tackle. That is something that this training camp in the preseason and even the last couple years, this Jets team has lacked. And you thought that maybe this would be a team, Aaron Glenn, Darren Muji would have went out and added a run-stopping defensive tackle late in the draft, a draft class that was loaded with them. They didn't. So the point I'm making here, before we dive into what Jowon Briggs brings to the table, this kind of feels like that late round defensive tackle, run-stopping defensive tackle depth addition that the New York Jets make here. They didn't ultimately take one in the draft, and it felt like instead they signed Derek Nottie, added some other veterans. Nottie was supposed to sort of be that run-stopping defensive tackle. He really hasn't emerged at all. He's been silent throughout training camp. So Briggs now comes in, and he's going to play a role in this team, and this potentially puts Nottie out the door and opens up a spot here for Briggs as much-needed defensive tackle depth from a run-stopping perspective. And you usually get your run-stopping defensive tackles late in drafts. The New York Jets give up a 6th-round pick, or give up a 6th-round pick. They get a 7th for Briggs. That's essentially the move you make here. Now, when you look at Briggs, he's young, and he also follows the line of what the New York Jets have done this offseason, and that is bringing in low-risk, high-reward type of signings, and that is young players with upside. Briggs is only entering year number 2. He was a 7th-round pick, 243rd overall last year by the Cleveland Browns. He's only 23 years old. He will be 24 when the season rolls around. September 1st is his birthday. So he will be entering his age 24 season in year number 2. So still a young player, 6'1", 313 pounds, was selected at Cincinnati. Actually played a season, teammates with Sauce Gardner. So that's an interesting connection that I'll note there. When you look at Briggs last season, kind of what you expected out of a 7th-round pick. Didn't play a whole lot, only appeared in 6 games, but did do some good things. 133 snaps, 70 came against the run, 63 pass rushing snaps, 13 tackles, 1 tackle for loss. Some of the pass rushing stuff, 2 quarterback hits, 4 pressures, 7 run stops, though, in 6 games and 133 snaps is a solid number for a rotational depth 7th-round pick that saw the field late last season. And the way he graded out actually was pretty solid in the games that he played. He had finished with a 72.2 overall grade, a 64.7 pass rush grade, and a 66.5 run defense grade. This Jets team needed defensive line depth. They needed defensive tackle depth from a run-stopping perspective. Leonard Taylor does a lot of good things as a pass rusher, right? From a depth perspective. You've got some other pieces, but Noddy, like I mentioned, hasn't done a whole lot. You haven't seen a whole lot from some other guys. So Briggs comes in as that run-stuffing defensive tackle, and you look for him to play a role here on this New York Jets team in 2025, and you continue to monitor the wide receiver market as well, because this is a Jets team. Darren Muji, Aaron Glenn, clearly some interest there in adding a wide receiver, whether that's a Romeo Dobbs, an Alec Pierce, many other names you could throw out there. Obviously some free agents as well, but it seems like something that they might strike a deal with in a trade to get a wide receiver here, which is another position, 2 positions that we've talked about, defensive line, wide receiver that needed depth. Jets find some depth here at defensive line, and you continue to wait on these wide receiver reports, and if anything materializes there. So that's the Jowon Briggs news. Jets make a trade, and they get a run-stopping defensive tackle here to add in to that defensive line room. Now we move on to what took place on the field today at practice. It was a rainy day. It was a wet day. It was raining all practice long. So takeaways from a pass game perspective, there were certainly some bumps. Fields actually had a stretch of 2 passes in a row where the ball just completely slipped out of his hand when he went to go pass it. And after that, actually ended up having to put gloves on. So it was a little bit of a sloppy day at times from a passing offense perspective, with the rain coming down, being limited. Fields clearly didn't have a great grip on the ball at times, not making excuses, just my thoughts and what I saw with my eyes. You did see some good things, though, from the run, and there were a couple positives. One positive drive from Fields in the starting offense where they did a really good job driving down the field, executing in the red zone, so we'll get to that. But a lot of situational stuff again today. The Jets actually did something pretty cool where, and I don't recall this in previous years rather, but I know teams do this all the time. They were pumping in through the speakers crowd noise. So there was a stretch where they were doing that. Then they ended out with some more just normal of 11-on-11 drills. But they started today. They did a lot of situational stuff yesterday. They started again today with more situational stuff. So the 11-on-11 drills began at the 34-yard line. Jets offense was down 21-20. They had 3 timeouts with 2 minutes and 24 seconds left. And in this set of team drills, it started off with a Breece Hall run, however, was called back for a penalty. So a 1st and 20 resulted in the next play. Andre Sisco blitzed, got pressure on Justin Fields. Tons of blitzing today from the New York Jets defense. Tons of Michael Carter blitzing, Tony Adams blitzing, Andre Sisco blitzing. Jermaine Johnson had a big day. We'll get to him here more in a second as we break down these plays. But that was the first 2 plays. 2nd and 20. Breece then had a run for 6 yards. And then one of the highlights of the practice was a 3rd and 14 completion to Garrett Wilson thrown from Justin Fields for 15 yards and a 1st down to move the chain. So a big chunk of yards in a 3rd and long situation for this starting Jets offense. And Fields, good ball, quick route, but Garrett did a lot of it, did a lot of the rest of it in terms of Nice cut up field, got to the open field, picked up a good 8 to 9 yards with his legs after the catch, and resulted in the first down. Braylon then had a run on that 1st and 10. He ran it for about a yard, and in 2nd and 9, Fields had a keeper for a first down. Shortly thereafter, the Jets ended up ending that drive, time running out. You that run that situation, punt comes on, kick return team comes on, the different situations there in terms of getting them on the field, getting them off the field. We saw a lot of that yesterday where the Jets offense would run off the field, punt team, kick team would come on, and Glenn talked about that's something that they wanted to do. So that's kind of how that drive ended up ending. One of the most positive drives today for this Jets offense came during the 11-on-11 drills when it was essentially a scrimmage, real game starting at the 35-yard line. They had the crowd noise to try and simulate a game scenario. It started with a Brees Hall run that got stuffed, went nowhere. So 2nd and 10, Brees ran again for 9 yards. Really nice play by Olu to get into space. Block up field for Brees. Brees ran behind Olu, picked up a nice chunk of yards there. On 3rd and 1, Andrew Beck, the fullback, got the carry, which he got enough for the first down. So the Jets, 1st down and 10, Braylon run now for 9 yards, 2nd and 1. Brees run after that, and that goes for a first down. So the New York Jets ground and pound approach on full display here with these 11-on-11 drills, with this set of 11-on-11 drills. Brees runs, Braylon run, Andrew Beck on a 2nd and 1 situation, or 3rd and 1 situation, rather. You give it to the fullback. He gets enough for the first down. So lots of positive from the run game perspective, and you expect to see a lot of that for this New York Jets offense. The Jets then, first pass of the drive was a completion to Mason Taylor. Nice ball, even better catch. Unfortunately, though, refs called offensive pass interference, so it moves back, play negated. So 1st and 15, Fields looks for Tyler Johnson, incomplete. Bad throw, overthrow. Tyler Johnson was in the area, but it wasn't even really accurate. And after the pass, Fields actually went up to Tyler Johnson and was talking to him. So maybe something of a miscommunication between the two of them, because the ball wasn't even close to Tyler Johnson. Something maybe that Fields felt he ran the wrong route, whatever, but they were talking after the play, and even when the second team were on, they were talking. So interesting note there. So it was 2nd and 15, then Fields found Garrett across the middle for another first down. So that was the 2nd straight first down of the day for Garrett Wilson. Jets now down at the 21-yard line. It was a 1st and 10, new set of downs. Fields had a read option. He took it for about 4 yards. The very next play, 2nd and 6 from the 17-yard line, so well inside the red zone now. Braylon had a 5-yard run. And in 3rd and 1, they go back to Braylon for 2 yards. So the Jets now find themselves in the 10-yard line. They go Braylon run for 3 yards, gets him to 2nd and 7 yards to go. And then we had a little bit of a trickery play here where Fields flips it to Garrett. Garrett then tries to pass to Justin Fields. Not a great throw. Little bit short, incomplete. And in the very next play, Justin Fields finds Garrett Wilson in the end zone on 3rd down and 7 for a touchdown. So that was a really solid drive. Couple 3rd down conversions. They found themselves in a lot of 3rd and short situations, which is a spot that this New York Jets offense is going to need to be in, because with the way this run game is, if they find themselves in 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2 or less, 4th and 2, 4th and 1 or less, and you have Braylon Allen, you have Brees Hall, you have Fields, the tush push, you have the quarterback sneak ability as well, which you're not going to run that in these practices, of course, but something that you're going to do more in games. You even have Andrew Beck, the fullback, who you can utilize. They have so many different things they can do from a run game perspective in 3rd and short situations. You saw some of that today on display and just how important it is. So a couple of 3rd down conversions, couple completions to Garrett. Very solid drive. By far the best drive of the day for the starting offense, ending in a touchdown. Things then ended up getting a little bit bumpy for the offense. Fields, as the practice went on, had a couple misfires to Garrett. There was a misfire to Mason Taylor, clearly having a little bit of a struggles getting a grip of the football. He had the two balls slip out of hands, like I mentioned. He then had an interception to Brandon Stevens. Mason Taylor, the pass was intended for Mason Taylor. Good play by Stevens. Stevens had a really good practice today. He ended up dropping another interception. He made himself do push-ups on Tyler Johnson. Right in his chest, couldn't come up with it, but a pass breakup by Stevens. So Stevens continues to have a really good camp, continues to get his hands on the football, continues to rack up some interceptions, which was the big knock on him coming out of Baltimore, continues to break up passes, which was also a big knock on him coming out of Baltimore, right? A guy that does everything well in coverage until the ball's thrown his way, and his ability to play the football is been poor. But so far this summer, not so far, the summer's over now. Training camp's done. One preseason game left. Starters won't be out there, as Glenn mentioned yesterday. This summer, you take away Brandon Stevens as a really big positive and a nice surprise. And now you're ready to roll. He's your cornerback too, clearly, going into week number 1. And you hope this is a guy that could take what he's done this summer and translate it into games. Because if that's the case, that's huge for this Jets secondary and huge alongside Sauce Gardner. Couple other notes here from these 11-on-11 drills. Arian Smith had an end around and a nice chunk play for about 11 to 12 yards. Fields also found Mason Taylor for a completion for about 10 yards. And then Jermaine Johnson on a 3rd down and 8 in the final set of the scrimmage with the crowd being pumped in, this kind of pseudo scrimmage like 11-on-11 drills for this Jets offense. 3rd and 8 from the 23-yard line. Jets in a spot clearly in field goal range, but in a spot here to pick up a first down, move the chains, get well inside the red zone, and put themselves in a position to score again. Jermaine Johnson comes screaming off the edge. He beats Armand Membu, and before Fields even throws the football, he's already dancing in the backfield. So play was dead. Fields ended up throwing it anyway. I, to be honest, forget who exactly it was to. He might have ended up running it. I don't even know. All I remember is just Jermaine Johnson got to him. It would have been a sack in a real game. Jermaine Johnson had 2 sacks today. There was a couple plays earlier in practice where the Jets were just, the defense was just getting home. I mean, like I said, Cisco, Michael Carter, Tony Adams even got in the backfield. Will McDonald had a sack today. He also had a nice run stop as well. A couple pressures. He was in the area. Jermaine Johnson had 2 sacks today, one early in practice and in that one. And that was a big one because you think of the situation. It's 3rd and 8, 23-yard line. You're inside the 25. It's a big, that's in a game scenario. That's a big stop. That's a big play for Jermaine Johnson. And I'll just say this, Jermaine Johnson looks great. His speed, his burst, his energy, you could tell he's fired up to be back out there. And he looks excellent. He looks great. He looks like he hasn't missed a step. Missed a beat. And the Jets starting defensive line is such, you could just tell such a difference from Jermaine Johnson being lined up on the opposite end of Will McDonald as opposed to Rashad Weaver or Michael Clemens, which we saw a lot of that this summer. And there is times where that was an eyesore. But Jermaine Johnson makes this defensive line so much more dangerous. Power from Jermaine, speed from Will McDonald complement each other really well. Quinnen as well in the interior. Of course, he's fully back healthy. They were getting home today. They were getting after it. Some other 11-on-11 drill notes here for the Jets. This was more towards the end of practice. Ended up stopping the crowd noise stuff. Just started to do some of the basic 11-on-11, less of a scrimmage-like type of drills. I mentioned the Brandon Stevens pass breakup on the final drive for the New York Jets. Started at the 50-yard line. Fields looked for Garrett Wilson, incomplete. Stiggers in coverage. Almost a great play on a deep ball. Fields threw it a little bit out of bounds, though, so incomplete. 2nd and 10, Fields ended up taking it, a read option for about 11 yards, which got them the first down. Tons of read options today. There was at least 3 or 4 read options, and Fields took a lot of them. I think he took probably just about every single one. And there was a couple chunk plays like that one on the 2nd and 10 where Fields was able to pick up 11 with his legs. So the chains move 1st and 10 now from the 39-yard line. of the Jets defense. Braylon had a run. It was a penalty, though, so moved back 1st and 20 from the 49. So essentially the 11 yards from Fields picked up on the read option was pushed back here as the Jets go back to the 49-yard line. He does find Tyler Johnson, picks up 11, so gets the penalty yards back, puts them in a situation 2nd and 9 from the 38-yard line. Briggs ran, nice run, 1st down, move the chains, 1st and 10 now from the 29-yard line. Brandon Stevens came screaming off the edge for a blitz, and ball was incomplete. Play was dead. Stevens was around him. So 2nd and 10 then. Fields found Tyler Johnson for about 5 yards, put them in a 3rd and 5 situation from the 24-yard line. And as I talked about earlier, again, we see another run play. Braylon out had a run for about 9 yards. That was a 1st down. So 1st and 10 then from the 15-yard line. Fields had to throw the ball away. Stone Smart was in the area. Will McDonald, though, got home for the pressure. 2nd and 10 then from the 15-yard line. Another read option from Justin Fields. He kept it for about 4 yards. And then the final play for the starting offense in practice today, 3rd and 6 from the 11-yard line. Jets trying to punch it in, trying to extend the drive. Fields was pressured. In a real game, probably would have been sacked. Who knows? Maybe he takes off and runs it, whatever, but throws it up to the back of the end zone, and Quantez Stiggers comes down with the interception. So technically 2 picks today for Justin Fields. The one drive was the highlight. That capped off with the Garrett Wilson touchdown. You had the run game rolling. You had a couple nice plays from Fields. The highlight was the Garrett Wilson touchdown to end the drive. That was the big one. That was the only scoring drive for this starting offense today. You had the 2 interceptions. You had a lot of wet footballs. You had a couple misfires, rain coming down, some ugly moments. But training camp comes to a close. It was a big day for Jermaine Johnson. He looked very good yesterday, came out there today, 2 sacks. Will McDonald sack, Tony Adams sack, Andre Sisco getting involved as well. Michael Carter blitzing a ton. Tony Adams, like I said, he came in on the blitz. You saw a ton of blitzing. We've seen a lot of that all camp. Excited to see that in games. Complete opposite of what we saw the previous coaching staff do. They never blitzed. And that was training camp. Another day. Arian Smith had a nice play today. Slant from Adrian Martinez. They counted him down at the 1. I would have given him the touchdown, though. It was about a 15-yard touchdown. Jets were inside the red zone at that point. But they marked him down at the 1. Either way, Arian Smith, he had the end around as well, so utilizing him in a couple different ways today. And that's another camp. As I always say, a little always bittersweet when training camp comes to a close. You know, walking out of the facility today, always a little bittersweet because I love training camp. Training camp coverage is some of my favorite coverage to do all year. And love being out there at all practices. Was able to make all the open practices this year, which was awesome. And why it's bittersweet is, well, training camp's over. But now we look forward to the regular season. Now the real stuff comes down the pipe here very, very soon. 2 weeks from this Sunday, the New York Jets will take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Close out with a game on Friday night to close out the preseason against the Eagles. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all so much for tuning in to all of these training camp recaps, to tuning into the player previews. We'll still have 2 more player previews. One will be out on Friday. The other will be out on Monday. We'll also have our Jets-Eagles preseason preview tomorrow. We'll try and get an episode out as well on some wide receiver targets. So stay tuned for that. So we still have a lot more content. Then we'll start to really dive into season preview and stuff like that. Jets are kind of off most of next week, and then it's game week. So a little bit of a final little lull here before we get to game week and we get ready for the Pittsburgh Steelers on September 7th. But I appreciate you all so much. This channel has grown so much this summer. The views and the support and the comments and so many kind words, so much support, so many of you watching. It has meant so much to me. I really appreciate every single one of you that tune into these videos. I know there's so much content out there. To take time out of your day and watch me, it means so much. I appreciate every single one of you. And now we get ready for the regular season. And I can't wait for that. And we're going to have a ton of coverage here for that as always. Another year coming up. So appreciate you all so much for all of the support this training camp. And stay tuned. We got a lot more content coming your way. Till next time, Jets, Jets, Jets.